honored to announce our last speaker on the panel. He calls himself humanitarian philanthropist, but I must say that he is the person that walks the talk. And thanks to him, Gree Cross has been able to launch a number of important programs as the pilot projects. So he could be called the godfather of several programs of Gree Cross International.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Alexander, for inviting me to talk a few moments. First of all, I want to not only honor Mr. Gorbachev, but also Alexander and his team for bringing this wonderful event together. And I want to have a big applause for the organization. I'd like to mention I'm back in Geneva. 30 years ago, I had the privilege to work for the Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, to work on a then started program called Child Alive, which aimed at the reduction of the children death and mortality related to the dehydration that goes with diarrhea. And this is a message, by the way, of hope. At that time, 5 million children died related to that cause, 5 million. And there is a very simple solution, oral rehydration salts. You bring water, sugar, and salt together, elements that can be found anywhere in nature and that are not manipulated by mankind. If you give that to a child, it's highly effective, it's very low cost, and it can save 90% of children's lives. It's a wonder. Now, today, 30 years later, only 2 million children die of that cause. So there is hope. When we use simple interventions, there are simple solutions too. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I met President Gorbachev, and I just want to share a little story. He was just back as the president of the Soviet Union. And he mentioned that in a hospital in Moscow, because of the falling apart of the Soviet Union, there was no finance anymore for 2 million bone marrow transplant units for children, especially from Chernobyl. I knew it cost 2 million, and I said to him, knowing that he got some speaking fees in the United States, if I would bring $500,000 to the table, would you be willing to bring $500,000 too? And then together we go to the Gaidar, the prime minister at that stage, Russia, and we formed the first public-private partnership. Mr. Gorbachev, President Gorbachev said yes. PMT, the bone marrow transplant unit, came, and I think still it is in existence. So, 2 big signs of hope, and the latter one of the big heart of the boss of this wonderful organization. Anyway, I like to address a general principle. What we often forget, that we all live here in the finite, in time and space, and that in time and space, each atom, each individual exists in a different spot. That each of us live in a different time. Even there's a time difference between my nostrils. So this system in which we live is an all-inclusive system. We all take part in the game of gravity. We all can breathe. So why do we, as human beings, behave like not understanding it? Act from scarcity. Define our economic laws even based on scarcity, instead of seeing that we live in an all-inclusive system, where the question is not so much how do we fight, win or lose, but how can we compare with care in order to share. So it's more a question of how do we divide our matter. And I was very happy to hear that Mr. Gorbachev this morning in his speech mentioned God. 20 years ago, I interviewed him on the environment. I asked him the same question, do you believe in God? He said, I believe in nature. So, I think we have it now knitted together. Nature may be the expression of a divine power. That divine power has created the male and female principle, working through men and women. It could work functionally. It also can work dysfunctionally. What is the principle? Male-female. It's plus, minus, giving, receiving. It's the physical power that we can use functionally, and the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not a weakness. So I'm here to remind us that we all have not only physical power, but also power to be vulnerable. And that's a strength. There's no life on earth that goes without the power to be vulnerable. And in order to honor that, I want to ask all women in this room to stand up and honor them in being the carrier of that power of vulnerability. Can you stand up, all of you? And I want now the men too. And I want to ask all of you to honor in silence that incredible power of being vulnerable, to not knowing, and to realize that we have a divine connection to our inner intuition. Thank you very much.